Okay. So no one really knows, from what I can tell, what the chemical is that is causing semen smell. Um, Most smells are some sort of smells tend to be caused by chemicals. And what happens is the odorant molecules, which have a specific shape, will go into your nose, and there are receptors in your nose that these odorant molecules kind of lock into. And will then signal. It's actually like a very mechanical process where you have your physical molecule, and then you have your receptor on the inside of your nose, and it like physically binds with that receptor and physically connects to that receptor. And then what that receptor then does is it turns it into a electrical signal, as all kind of communication in our brain is signaling by electrical signaling. So we have those, and so chemicals or molecules that are similar in shape will activate similar or will activate the same receptor. So this is why you can have things that might be very different that actually are causing similar smells, is they have similar shaped odorant molecules. And so I would assume that some sort of chemical that this plant is giving off is kind of in the same shape as the odorant molecules that cum has. But now I get to Google semen odorant molecules. I'm going to end up on a list somewhere. Like, what? Sperm have olfactory receptors? What? I'm so confused. Oh my god. Okay, this paper is literally just called Sniffing Sperm from the Journal of Experimental Biology. So we're definitely clicking on that. What? Okay. Ooh, this one looks helpful. Aye. Bitchin'. This is from 2004. So a 2003 study in Science magazine. And let's see. Oh, what? Okay, this is super great. It's not the answer to the question I was asking, but it's super cool, and I'm here for it. So, what this study, a couple of these, yeah, is this the, oh, they're still, okay. So, sperm actually have odorant receptors. So not just these kinds of olfactory means smell, not just olfactory receptors in your brain, but apparently sperm have olfactory receptors on them. A protein called, swear to God, I am not making this up right now, HOR17-4. It's actually HO, little h, big O, big R, but I'm calling it HOR17-4. So, this protein is on sperm, and it's an olfactory receptor, similar to ones that are in our that are part of our olfactory system in the brain. And it apparently is one of the ways that sperm find eggs. So once ejaculation has happened in a female and an egg is kind of floating in its tube doing its thing. Did you like my little egg doing its thing dance? But the sperm has to get to that egg somehow, and apparently one of the ways that it detects where that egg is by detecting this odorant molecule. That is, in fact, a similar molecule that's found in nasal cells. And apparently, the smell is different to men and women. So keep in mind that we don't know what the sperm cells are actually detecting. But when you have human, probably undergraduates, smelling odorants for that same protein receptor, there are two of them. One of them is called bourgeonal. I have no idea. And then the other one is called undecanal, which I'm going to be honest, I first read that as undercarnal, which makes sense given where my head is at right now, but undecanal. And so bourgeonal apparently smells like lily of the valley flowers. And it's the chemical that is attracting sperm. And undecanal smells like glue and blocks sperm from responding to bourgeonal. So there's some sort of undecanal can also block other odorants like vanilla. Can't block other odorants. So there's something special about this particular receptor that it's blocking. What? Okay, given the similarities between sperm and nose Whore17.4 receptors, it's tempting to speculate that men who have trouble smelling bourgeonal may produce sperm that have trouble locating the egg. So, I guess are having trouble conceiving, see if you can smell this chemical, and maybe your spermies are just getting lost because they can't smell eggs. I'm going to be honest with you. This is really not where I thought my discussion of sperm trees was going to end up. But sperm that smell, I'm like here for it. Let's see. Testicular odorant receptor. I love it. Oh, okay. It's hoped that perturbation of Whore17.4 mediated navigation may lead to the development of new contraceptives with fewer adverse reactions. So I guess since you have those two odorant or those two different chemicals, and one of them blocks the sperm from being able to detect the other one, I can see how a contraceptive based on that chemical, I mean, basically, it would potentially keep the sperm from being able to find the egg. I don't know how much faith I would have in that contraceptive. It seems like just betting on a man not to find a woman in a uterus isn't the most reliable form of contraception. Like, okay, it can't sniff it out and find it, but it could still just like kind of bump into it in the night. It's like eggs are hella big compared to sperm. I think eggs are like 1,000 times bigger than sperm. Like, I definitely feel like you would accidentally be you. I say you because apparently in this scenario you're a sperm. Like, you would definitely have the option to just bump into an egg even if you weren't like seeking it out. Maybe? Huh. I'm not sure I trust this form of birth control. But granted, this paper came out in 2003, which, if you want to feel super old, is 16 years ago. So let's see if contraceptive... what should we search? Contraceptive... odor receptor. That's not how you spell receptor. That's how you spell receptor. It's fine. I only taught sensation and perception. I don't need to know how to spell the word receptor. Oh, okay. Cool. Great. So now where we're on a different tangent now. We're on a different tangent now about how contraceptives affect olfactory performance. Great. So I was looking at estradiol, which is one of the compounds that's in birth control. A lot of birth control has estradiol and has progesterone in it. So if you look at like the names of contraceptives, a lot of times you'll see like dial or estra in the name, and that's coming from the estradiol. So they took women who were on hormonal birth control and significantly higher olfactory performance was observed in women using low-dose products compared to women using high-dosed products. So apparently, this looks like a real thing where birth control in general, hormonal contraception anyway, I think the study was just looking at oral contraception, so the pill. Oh my God. Olfactory performance was assessed using the Sniffin' Sticks test battery. And yes, it has an apostrophe at the end of sniffin'. They were trying to see if people could tell the difference between odors, just trying to detect odors. And then identify odors. So, like, this is a common odor. What is it? With the sniffing sticks. Okay, so this is also super interesting because So this study found that women who were taking higher doses of estradiol had poorer olfactory performance, but most studies suggest increased olfactory sensitivity during the ovulatory luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, which is a time with increased estrogen. So, kind of this artificial estradiol high doses is decreasing smelling performance, but that time of the month when there's more estrogen in the body naturally is increasing olfactory sensitivity. Possibly dependent on which odors you're using. Now I just like, I mean, I have an IUD, so I haven't had a period in like 3 years, which kind of makes me really disappointed because now I just want to like smell shit when I'm ovulating. Right? Huh. Which also makes sense because, okay, so pheromones, right? So pheromones are chemicals that animals release or detect that attract essentially animals, other animals of the species. Like we like to talk about them a lot in terms of sex, or you find like it's how animals are kind of finding each other and to fuck, but it also helps members of the same species. Like insects and things will use pheromones as a way to like find the other members of their species. So the idea of pheromones in humans is actually really contested. We don't for sure know whether humans have pheromones or use this kind of pheromone detection in the same way. Despite what a couple years ago, I was dating this guy and his best friend's girlfriend was hosting a pure romance party, and she invited me, and he was like, I really need you to go. Like, she asked you, he's really important to me. We're going to be hanging out a lot. Like, I need you to go. And this is only the second time I had met this girl, and it was at this fucking, like, vibrator dildo party. I didn't know anyone else in the room. I'm not sure if that makes it easier or harder to talk about dildos. This chick straight up, like, so this person comes to her house and is, like, puts all of her dildos on a table. And we start with the less intimidating products. So there's a tingling lip balm that you can also put on your nipples. And God bless if that bitch did not like walk to like just straight up while we were sitting in that party, just like stick her hand down her shirt and put tingling lip balm on her nips. Like straight up happened. Second time I met this girl. Who, buddy? And there's all sorts of other like throat numbing creams so you can stick a dick further down your throat. Or there's a like shaving lotion, and then like things get like really off the rails. But one of the products was this cologne that supposedly you put it on and it interacts with your pheromones, your personal pheromones. And because of that, it has a really different smell on everyone. So on some people, it's really fruity smelling. On some people, it's kind of like a musky smell. So obviously I bought this shit, right? Because I was at this party, like I had to buy something. So I also bought this really nice little heating up like massager thing, like not massager in the like way people actually call vibrators to make them appropriate, but it was like one of those reusable hand warmers that you can pop the little disc and there's an exothermic reaction and it gives off heat. And it was like this little heart-shaped squishy heart that you could then like heat up and kind of use it for like a hot stone massage. It was actually super nice. Big fan. But yeah, so I bought this pheromone cologne because I was like, this is going to be great to use in the classes I teach when we're talking about pheromones. And it definitely is true that it smells differently on different people. And it smells very differently on different people. I will say that that is actually true of most perfumes and colognes. Just because even if humans don't have pheromones, we still definitely kind of have our individual scent or our individual kind of like that's based on things like what we eat, based on how active our sweat glands are, just all sorts of things. And so we have our individual smell. And so basically every cologne or perfume is going to interact with your individual scent differently than it interacts with other people's scent. So cool, great, awesome. Still have this shit. I think it's in a drawer somewhere, maybe. But anyway, that's my tangent on pheromones. We don't know if humans actually possess pheromones. This is a super kind of contentious topic. There's been a lot of research on it. And we just like maybe question mark. So the way that they kind of test this in humans a lot of times is they have people smell things. Like they'll look at pictures and smell things while they're looking at them and then see if there's any kind of difference in how attractive people find whoever they're looking at or whatever they're looking at. They've done some experiments with like smelling a shirt that a guy wore and looking at the picture, and do you find him more or less attractive if you're smelling his like armpit of his shirt while you're looking at the picture. Or they did one with like they had women watch like a sad movie and basically were like determining if like men were smelling the clothing that like a woman had cried on if they found her more or less attractive. I think that study found that men did find women more, like looking at a picture of a woman was more attractive if they had cried on their clothes, like they were smelling clothes that the women had cried on, which maybe you could make an evolutionary argument was protective or was like, I don't know, like men like it when women cry, which explains a lot about my relationship. Hey, babe. Hi, love you. But yeah, so this is the way that they do these studies is like, look at this picture of a person and smell this armpit. How attractive do you find it? So this study that I'm looking at that was in 2017, used 2 steroids that are basically like analogous to chemicals in animals that we know act as pheromones. So androstenedione, which is found in male sweat and semen, and possibly jizz trees. Who knows? Maybe jizz trees have pheromones. And then estrotetraenol, which is in women's urine. So, like, smell this pee and tell me how hot this woman is. Um, and this study is actually really interesting because they didn't just use pictures of men and women, but they face merged males and females to create a like neutral gender ambiguous face. So they were actually, and then they speculated that if these steroids were actually pheromones, female volunteers given the sweat and semen smell. Oh God, it sounds like a male locker room. Oh, oof. High school me is like having flashbacks to a whole bunch of Axe body spray right now. So if they like smelled the sweat semen steroid, they would see the gender neutral faces as male. Male volunteers smelling this female steroid would see the gender neutral faces as female. And they would rate the opposite sex's faces as more attractive. And there was no effect. So basically, like, we don't know. There's been really not a lot of evidence that human pheromones exist. At the same time, like, maybe they do and we're just not testing the right chemicals. That's very possible. It's also kind of difficult to, like, these are super subjective studies. And so, like, we're just trying to determine if something is a pheromone by saying, this makes women think you're more attractive. This makes men think you're more attractive. It's a pheromone. So it's also, like, super possible that that's really not the best way to determine if something is a pheromone. But honestly, I don't know enough about pheromones to be able to say if something is, or like if there's a better way to study it. Oh, okay. So this person says that scientists should study babies, so let that be creepy for a second, who have not developed confounding associations with smells, but seem to respond to pheromone-like substances from any mother's areola gland secretions, which causes them to stick out their tongue and suckle. So remember, pheromones aren't necessarily just to attract a mate. They're also attracting members of the same species, or animals will like use them to mark their territory, to warn off members of the same species. So there are a lot of like non-sexual uses for pheromones. That feels like a really weird way to put that. But they do a lot of things that aren't just sexual. So this idea that like babies smell breast milk, like any mother's breast milk, and they're immediately kind of like rooting around for a nip to suck. I'm also really weirded out that this thing calls it areola gland secretions. Like, you can just say breast milk. It's okay. Or maybe others. Ooh, are there others? I've never had a baby. Are there other secretions from areolas? I don't know.
You want me to search?
No, I think I'm okay for right now. We'll put a pin in that one. So where this whole kind of journey, I'm totally going to answer how much pee fits in the balls. So give me a second. We'll come back to that. I can just say it now. Interestingly, actually, no. Hold that thought, because I'm actually going to do some volumetric calculations on that, and we will get you a goddamn answer. But where this trip into pheromones came from is I was going back to this study about contraceptive use and how it affects sense of smell, and that when women are ovulating, they are more sensitive to smells. And if human pheromones are a thing, I think this could totally make a lot of sense that, like, when a woman is basically, like, at her most fertile, she's more sensitive to smells and can, like, better, like, sniff out a mate, maybe. Or maybe you're, like, more sensitive to smells of, like, predators because you're wanting to do some baby making. But, like, that would make sense. So that would make sense, kind of, if being able to smell out a mate or an appropriate mate or something is true. There are some really fucking sleazy men who claim that they can, like, smell when a woman is ovulating and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna, like, get her pregnant because boning. As far as I know, that's, like, smell when ovulating. What kind of odor? Does your vagina smell different? Can men tell if you're ovulating? Health.com, despite the incredibly official sounding name, I'm not sure how accurate. Okay, yeah. Metamoth01 says on Reddit, says that his girlfriend, he can smell when she's ovulating. Can also affect pH all over the body, which might give us a sweeter smell in general. But there's no, like, it's all just kind of anecdotal right now. Like, there's no, it's auto playing a video. Sorry, guys. And so there's no data that say that women smell different when they're ovulating. It's just kind of, like, anecdotal, and people claim that their wife or girlfriend smells differently, or that they can, like, sniff it out, and we could come up with reasons why that might be true, but there's no actual data that says that that is true. So, yes, there is my wonderful journey from jizz trees to whether you smell different while you're ovulating. With a tangent there about the time I went to a dildo party.
You ready for a new topic?
I am ready for a new topic.
I think this should be a good interesting one. I'll get you in some deep rabbit holes. Actually, I don't know how much you could actually look up on this one.
All right, what do you have for me?